You broke your back, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah, well, it was after work, and I was riding I was riding a motorbike to and from work, and it was a rainy evening, and I ended up on was it Victoria Street or Victoria Parade, where the trams are.
Yep.
And I lost control of the bike on a wet tram track. The back wheel sort of slipped out from underneath me, and I hit the road, and I went under a car. That when I didn't realise what had happened, and because it all happened very quickly, and I hit the road, and the force, I think it was the force of hitting the road that gave me a compressed fracture of the spine. Then I got like a kick in the head, and I opened my eyes, and I was underneath a car. I was looking at the radiator of a car. I was completely under a car that had been coming the other way. I'd slid across the road and went under the car, and the kick in the head was my head hitting the wheel of the car. But fortunately, because it was Victoria Street and it was busy, it was going pretty slowly, so he managed to stop and didn't run over me, I guess. But they got the car off me, and I was on the road, and I remember they were trying to get my helmet off, but they didn't undo the strap. I had a full face helmet, and they didn't undo the strap. I'm trying to tell them to undo the strap, and that was quite a challenge for them to understand, because I also had a mouthful of blood. I'd been and had just before I went home, I'd been to the dentist, so I had a mouthful of cotton wool. All bloody. And so as they took the helmet off, of course, I spit out this cotton wool with all the blood on it, and they was yelling and screaming, "Oh, he's breaking his neck!" And
yes,
no, it's okay. I've just been to the dentist. So it looked a lot worse than it was, but yeah, the ambulance came and carted me off to I think it was St Vincent's Hospital, and I just remember the very strange. I wasn't in any pain. I just couldn't. I had no feeling from my chest down, and they had me on the trolley thing, and I kept saying, "Well, I'm just going to go home now. I'll get up and go home." But it was quite an odd sensation, because I couldn't actually, my legs wouldn't move, and there was just, my brain was saying, "Right, get up and let's go," but the body was saying, "Yeah, nothing doing." And they wheeled me down for X-rays, and they draped me over the X-ray machine. So it was one of those vertical X-ray machines, and they sort of draped me over it like an old towel.
Yeah.
And that really hurt. And I remember that was not great, because all my weight was sort of just hanging. And they took the X-rays, and then took me back down to the waiting room, and I was lying on the trolley and thinking, this is not great. And then they came down and said, "Look, the X-rays haven't worked. We're going to have to do it again."
Shit.
And I go, nah, but I couldn't actually stop it because I had no control, obviously. So they took me down and did it to me again. And they wouldn't tell me what was the matter with me. And I said, well, they wanted my details and next of kin and all that sort of stuff. I said, "I'm not telling you anything until you tell me what I've done." And I said, "Well, we're not completely sure. We think you've broken your back, and you may not ever walk again. You may, if you've severed your spinal column, whatever it's called, spinal cord, then you won't be walking again." That was a bit concerning. They said, "We won't know until the swelling goes down, but it looks as though you've broken a couple of vertebrae in your spine, sort of compressed fracture." So yeah, it was for about a week. I was in the hospital, and gradually started to get some feeling in my toes, and was able to, with enormous difficulty, get myself out of the bed and get to the toilet. And then they eventually sent me home to, and I was living on my own at the time, so I went home to mum and dad's, and mum just about killed me with kindness, had the little bell beside the bed, and I was used to living on my own, so I was only there for a week, and I got mum to take me home. And I was on crutches and obviously couldn't walk properly, but I went out the back when I got home and found my motorbike was in the garage. And I was just looking at it, and I thought, if I don't ride this now, I'm never going to ride a motorbike again. So I got on the bike and started it up, because the bike wasn't damaged, just a few scratches. I got on it and took off up the driveway, and mum came running out of the house and screaming, and I didn't have a helmet on or anything.
Shit.
Just a t-shirt, nothing to see here. And I was absolutely terrified, but I took off up the road, down Mitcham Road, and went out for about 10 minutes and gave it a bit of a fanging, and came home and said, right, I can sell the bike now, I'm okay.
Pack it in.
So
Jesus Christ.
yeah, and that was it. But really, it was just it was a compressed fracture of the spine, and it just meant that I live with a sore back now, and that was sort of in my mid-20s. And most of the time, if I get tired, my back will start to hurt, and if I put on too much weight, that's incredibly painful. So that sort of leads into the Kokoda story, because I was significantly overweight several years later on. I was significantly overweight, and I realised that was what was causing my back pain, and I was on about 15, 20 painkillers a day at that stage. I was taking a lot of painkillers just to get through the day. I was still going to work. I think I had 3 or 4 weeks off work after the accident, and then no more time off. So I just accepted that I was going to live with pain for my life. But yeah, as I got bigger, the pain became more debilitating. So I made the decision that I needed to lose weight if I was going to be able to stop the amount of painkillers that I was on, because that was starting to have an impact on me as well. That's when I started walking, and I went up to the 1,000 steps and learned the story of Kokoda, and sort of that became an all-consuming passion then. Once I read the story, I remember when I first went up to the 1,000 steps, I got from the car park to the start of the steps. I thought the start of the steps was the 1,000 steps. I was knackered.
A trap for some of the younger players.
I was completely knackered, and I thought, this is the 1,000 steps. I said, no, it starts here. I thought, oh shit, I'm out.
Yeah, well, I suppose, let's launch into that then, because I don't really have a set format or anything like that. So
okay.
It was, so I didn't know that was a contributing factor to the, so what was the motivating factor? Because I understand it was in the lead up to turning 50 that you wanted to get in shape, get your shit together. What was the, what were the motivating factors?
Well, it was all about losing weight. So I started, obviously living in Ferntree Gully, the closest place to walk was up to the 1,000 steps. And as I started doing, it took me a couple of months to be able to actually get onto the steps and start going up the steps. But as you go up the steps, there are little plaques along the way that tell I give you an overview of the Kokoda story. And the more weight I lost, the more interested I got in the Kokoda story, and it started to become all-consuming passion for me, because my dad your grandfather was in New Guinea during the war. He was in the Air Force, and one of the places where he was in New Guinea. And I didn't have a great relationship with Dad, who died quite some time ago, and it sort of always bothered me that I didn't have a close relationship with Dad, and I didn't understand what happened during the war. He was only a young man at that time, and this sort of all became really important to me, particularly when I looked at my own kids and realised the story of the 39th Battalion and what these basically group of kids actually did so that they could hold the Japanese back for long enough for the army to get there and fight the Kokoda battles. And so it became a really important thing for me to actually go and stand at a little township on the Kokoda track called Ishurava. Ishurava is the place where the 4 pillars of Kokoda stand. They're 4 granite pillars. And that sort of became really important for me to stand at Ishurava and say out loud, I wanted to say thank you. It still gets me pretty emotional.
Yeah.
So I did that. It took me 12 months of training, 12 months of going up and down mountains and Donna Buang, the fire track, and around the tan. I was working in the city at the time, so I did the tan every morning with a pack. I lost 20 kilos and got fit because I was absolutely terrified of going to the jungle. I thought I've never been to a jungle before, and I was absolutely terrified that I was not going to be able to make it, and I was going to let down the memory of the diggers, and that was unthinkable. So I got incredibly fit to the point where just before I left, I did the 1,000 steps 3 times without stopping, right up and down to the car park with a full pack. So I had about 25, 30 kilos on my back, and I figured then I was fit enough to be able to tackle Kokoda and do what I wanted to do. So it was not for any real military reason. Initially it was about fitness, then it became about saying thanks, and then it was about my dad's memory as well. So I had my dad's slouch hat reblocked in the city, and I wore that on the track and did what I needed to do, and thought that was why I was going to Kokoda. But in Kokoda, on the track, I found out there was another reason that I was there, and it was the relationship with the porter and meeting the locals, meeting the village people, and just understanding how truly beautiful and humble these people are, and still have this passion for Australia and what happened during the war, and by the way, an overwhelming hatred of the Japanese, which still? They made no. Still, yeah, there's no love for amongst the people from New Guinea, the actual porters and the village people. There's no love lost.
Right.
They've forgiven, but they haven't forgotten. There was some appalling atrocities committed. I read a lot about the Kokoda campaign. I read 17 books. I bought every book I could find. And including a book by a Japanese soldier called the Bone Man of Kokoda.
Oh, yeah.
And that gives. I wanted a complete insight into what it was about, so I read as much as I could. And then had the extraordinary experience just before I turned 50, so that was 14 years ago now.
Yeah.
Of doing it, and then when I came back, I thought that was it. I thought I'd done what I needed to do, but I bumped into a Baptist minister at a birthday party. He was a young fella, and wanted to. He had all the dreadlocks and all that stuff going on, and I've always been attracted to people who are a little bit different. Hence why I like you so much. But I was talking to this guy, and he was just wanting to know what I'd been doing, and I was only recently back from Kokoda, and I was telling him the story about what actually occurred over there and why I thought the Kokoda story was relevant and important to the youth of today. And he said that he was running a program at the local high schools for at-risk youth, and would I come and tell the Kokoda story? So I put some of the photographs together and made a bit of a PowerPoint presentation and got some of my memorabilia, which I'd collected, and went off and did the talk. And it went pretty well. And then the school where you guys went asked me to come and talk to a group of students about the whole experience. And I said I would do it on the proviso that they didn't have one of my sons present. And I think Adam was in year 11 at that time.
Yep.
Okay, so not year 11. If it's just a group of younger kids, I'm okay with it. But on the day, the entire chapel was full of year 11 kids, including Adam sitting right up the front. And as you've already seen, it's a pretty emotional story for me. So that was really one of the first times I'd spoken publicly about the Kokoda story. And I let him have it with both barrels, with full emotion and the whole bit. And at the end of it, I thought I'll probably embarrassed Adam to the point where he'll never speak to me again. But he and a couple of his mates came up to the lectern at the end of the talk and said that's the most incredible thing they'd ever heard. And how proud they were to be part of the audience and privileged. And I thought, well, maybe this is an important story. And if it's going to have this impact on young blokes to understand the history of Australia and why we feel the way we do about mateship and what's important to us, then maybe I need to tell the story. So for the next 3 or 4 years, I did the tour of schools and I spoke at a number of lawyers' conferences and a number of other meetings, and I've done it multiple times now, and I talk about it whenever I get the opportunity because I think the story is incredibly important for a country that's only 250 years old. We haven't got any history like lots of overseas countries. So I think it's an important thing for particularly young Australian males to understand what our history and culture is. And it grew out of the battlefield, and it doesn't matter where you were born, if you're Australian, this is important for you to understand that a group of kids who were not able to be in the regular army, who had all sorts of ailments and social misfits, formed the 39th Battalion and defended Australia with their lives, and that gave us the opportunity to live the way we do today, which is, I think, pretty important and relevant. So yeah, there's two stories. There's the overweight motorbike and Kokoda sort of all rolled into.
Yeah, a strong intro indeed. Well, something that we may have discussed at some point in time, but I've always been curious about like the nature of our relationship, father and son wise, is very unique, I think. The level of openness and honesty, transparency we have with one another. I'm curious as to what your relationship was like with Grandpa, your dad, and how, and also if there are any, often I find myself saying and doing things, and I identify that a lot of that has been instilled in me from you, and I know it. And also Maria points it out at times. I'll say something, she'll say, yeah, you're definitely your father's son. But yeah,
maybe not necessarily always good.
Yeah, kind of swings both ways. But I'm curious as to whether or not there are things that you say and do or have done in the past, and you think, oh shit, that's Grandpa for sure. Or yeah, and just the nature of your relationship with him.
Yeah, well, I think I've already alluded that I didn't have a really close relationship with Dad. It wasn't a bad relationship, but it was just not close. And that was growing up in a time when that was the way Australian males were. You didn't have a lot to do with your kids. Your job was to generate income, and that was pretty much what Dad did. He worked 6 days a week at least and worked overtime most nights, so I didn't see him a lot. He was involved with the scouts that I was involved in, came on a few scout camps, but Dad didn't drink. Occasionally I would see him have a glass of beer on a really hot day, but my mother, your grandmother's father, was a violent alcoholic, which again was not uncommon at the time. So when Mum and Dad got married, Mum said to Dad if he ever came home drunk, she would axe him in his sleep. And he believed it. And Mum would have been just a girl for the job too. So Dad didn't really drink. So there was not that, and he smoked heavily during the war, as most kids and young people did, but he'd given up, so he didn't drink and didn't smoke. And I guess I did both of those things as a young bloke, and couldn't really understand what Dad's motivation was. So he was more of a gardener. He was an introvert. He was the city valuer of initially at Waverley, and then for many years he was the city valuer of Brunswick. He was a highly intelligent, analytical kind of guy, detail-minded, very competent in anything he would undertake and would see it through to the bitter end, whether it was building things or working in his vegetable garden. Everything was done meticulously. And I guess I'm completely the opposite of that. I'm a far more laissez-faire style. With the exception of the preparation I did for Kokoda, I've pretty much taken shortcuts wherever I can. I will sneak my way around things. If there's a shortcut, I'll find it. And if I can pay someone else to do a job, I'll do it. And Dad was absolutely the opposite. So, look, I think what I got from Dad was his set of values as far as right from wrong. And doing the right thing. And he certainly, his mates from the Air Force, he was very dedicated to them and what had happened during the war. Not that they were actively involved in any great skirmishes that I could understand, but he certainly felt strongly about his mates. But as far as personality characteristics, my mother was a significant extrovert, and I've taken after her. My personality is far more aligned with hers. Your personality is closer to your grandfather's than mine, and also in looks and mannerisms. Some of the photos I've seen of you and he at the same age, it's quite striking. Where
Yeah.
I'm more my mother, who always sort of struggled with her weight and really didn't care too much what other people thought. Where extroverts tend to be a bit like that, but I suppose that sort of led on to my working life. And my dad always said when I was young, get a job in the public service, son, you'll have a job for life. And so when I was leaving school, I did the public servants entrance exam. While I was waiting for the results of that to come through, I went off to Ringwood, and I got a job at Hassett's Machinery Sales as a spare parts assistant. They sold tractors and rotary hose in Ringwood, where the Iceland ended up being, which is sort of where the freeway is now. It's long since gone. But I started there until I got the call up for the public service to say I'd passed. I joined the law department, and my first job was bench clerk at Ringwood Magistrates Court. calling the cases and all that sort of jazz. So pretty much straight out of school, with the exception of a couple of months at Hassett. So I was in the public service in the law department and working as a bench clerk. Then the law department sort of led on from there. And 17 years later, I was still in the law department, in the corporate affairs office, which is where I met your mum.
Yeah, that's something else I want to tackle. I think that's, Jesus Christ, I think that's interesting. So I'll set the scene. My understanding was that you met and married a lady, had 2 kids, ended up having a divorce. Next minute, you're cruising around back at work as a single father with 2 children at home.
Yeah.
And somehow you managed to dazzle the most straight shooting, not out there lady in town. How does that happen?
Yeah. Kind of bizarre, that one, isn't it? Because you're quite right. I was married at 19, just turned 19, in fact, by a couple of days, and was married and then had 2 kids, and that didn't go as well as anyone would have liked, so divorced at 21. And shortly after that, I got custody of my 2 daughters, Leonie and Brooke, who now live up in Queensland, and they're in their 40s. Crikey, I'm old there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty extraordinary several years of my life, my early 20s, where I looked after the girl. I was a stay-at-home dad, and there was no money at all. There was certainly no maintenance being paid. It was, but life was great. I mean, I didn't have a car. Life was very simple because that's just the way it had to be. And then, as things progressed, I ended up going back to work, and the girls went back to their mother, which was that's another long story. But yeah, I was 26, and there was a young 19-year-old girl in the corporate affairs office who I thought was the hottest thing I'd seen. But she was she's an introvert, and I was wearing cowboy boots. I wore cowboy boots to work, and to say I was a little bit of an extroverted lunatic and liked to go and have a drink after work is probably an understatement. And she didn't really drink, and was a good Catholic girl. I was a divorced Protestant, so you'd have to say not exactly a logical marriage made in heaven, but the old office Christmas party ensued one year, and poor old Annette ended up with me. And the girl that I took to the office Christmas party, she got the arse because she was nowhere near as cute as your mum. And your mum ended up with me, and I think just to prove to everyone that she wasn't just making a flippant decision, she decided to tough it out. But it probably would have petered out. It was an interesting relationship because, I mean, we were just we had the core values were the same about what we wanted out of life, but the way we went about it was quite different. And I guess opposites attract. I'd been around and met the parents, Nana and Papa, and that all went well. And I thought they knew about my background and my history, but they didn't. And when they found out, good old Papa banned your mother from seeing me. And of course, you can't do that. That never goes well. So as soon as that happened, your mother moved out of home. I had nothing to do with it. And she moved into a flat, and they blamed me for that. Well, again, I had nothing to do with it. But then when he got serious and said that she was not to see me anymore, you've met your mother, you know what she's like. She doesn't go well when she gets told that she's not allowed to do something. So I think out of spite, she married me, and we had to go through the Catholic Marriage Tribunal, that was a long 2-year experience of trying to get the Catholic Marriage Tribunal to sit in judgment on my first marriage, because despite the fact that I was divorced, they didn't recognise that. So I had to interview my ex-wife, interview my mother, interview my sister-in-law, interview me multiple times. It wasn't until I paid them a couple of $100 that they actually made the decision. And the next thing, in pretty quick time, we were married, and away we went. And your mum just wanted to be a stay-at-home mum, and as distinct from my first wife, she was a fantastic homemaker and provider and carer, and just was everything that I was looking for in a partner, and tolerated my inappropriate behaviour and occasional bouts of drinking and yahooing, which she just took in her stride. And despite everyone's prediction, here we are 35 years later with 4 more kids, and life for a couple of public servants who never finished secondary school, I think we've gone okay. And she's provided the yin to my yang, and what I'm no good at, she's been good at, and she manages the money. And I left the public service after we got married because we were both in the corporate affairs, and I was looking at my boss one day, and I thought, that bloke is seriously the most boring bastard I've ever seen in my life. He's got the cardigan on. I said, that is me in another 15, 20 years' time if I don't get out. So, yeah, I made the decision shortly after we were married to leave the public service and see whether I was actually capable of making it in the real world. So, a couple of months after I left, I think one of your issues was it was Christmas Eve, and I got the phone call from the boss saying, shut up the shop and business is finished, and let the girls go and it's all over. So I got home, and this was before any of you kids were there. I'm pretty sure before any of you were born. And I came home and said, I made the worst mistake in my life. I should never have left the public service. And your mum supported me to say, no, you just need to stick with it. This is a setback. It's Christmas Eve, and it wasn't a great time to be looking for a job. But I managed to stick it out, and in the new year, get a job with FAI, the insurance company, and things sort of started progressing from there. I'm learning about workers' compensation and learning how to think, which is like with all of you kids. One of the things that we've always tried to do is never teach you what to think, but try to teach you how to think and how to work things out for yourselves. And I think your mum and I go pretty well at that kind of stuff. So the fact that you're all diverse in your interests and your behaviours and your language and a lot of the stuff, you've got the same core values, and we never encouraged any of you to go to university. Not because you weren't capable of it, but because if you wanted to do it, we would have supported you. But we wanted you to get life experience. We wanted you to learn how to think and how to have successes and how to have failures and how to learn from those failures, and realise that we're in the luckiest country in the world. You can fail, and it's okay. It's not fatal. You will be okay, and you only learn that from actually falling over, that you can get up again and it's okay. Where a lot of the guys that I went to school with and your generation going to university was a natural progression, and they've just churned out a whole generation of educated idiots who've got no practical experience, don't understand that life actually doesn't owe you a living. And I thought, like in Adam's case, Adam went back to university after a few years in the workforce and did something that he was genuinely passionate about and absolutely excelled. He paid for it, he did it, and got high distinctions, and because he wanted to do it, not because mum and dad said, this is what you need to do, you have to go to university, you have to get good grades. We just wanted you to be decent people. We wanted you to find your own way, all of you, and you have, you're all very different, but you've all got the same core values. And that, to me and to your mum, was what our job was to prepare you to be decent citizens, to have a crack and look after other people who weren't as fortunate. And I guess that's sort of the values that we hold dear and always have. And that's why we're so proud of you guys, that you do all different things, but you do it to the best of your ability. None of you are half-assed, and you've all made great successes of your lives in your own chosen areas, and we can watch and participate in that and get a lot of pleasure and satisfaction out of it. So.
Yeah, and I think it would be foolish if I didn't take the opportunity to thank you and obviously mum as well, because I've always felt like I had more and more as I get older. I've felt really, really fortunate to have had what I view as a very well balanced childhood. And there's certainly been ups and downs and all the things that go along with life that like I was saying, asking with the things that you attribute to grandpa and things like that, I think I attribute a lot of my, level-headedness and ability to navigate some very stressful situations to the way I had observed both you and mum with, any number of situations that the family had encountered. It was always I don't recall a time where it was ever like, oh shit, we've really whiffed it here, time to fall in a heap. There was always a way forward and a way to progress through things, and I feel like I've had that instilled in me, and I think it'd be a safe bet to say that all of us kids have, in some capacity, benefited a great deal from that. So I'm very, very grateful for that, amongst many other things.
You're very welcome. It was from a selfish perspective. I didn't want to have to look after you bastards as I got old. I thought, you need to be able to look after me, so you need to be able to cope in the real world. And you guys, particularly boys, have come on lots of walks with me. After Kokoda, I was pretty passionate about not stopping walking, because it had become something I was really interested in. So I met up with a group of blokes, and we've done walks now all around the world, and certainly around Australia and New Zealand. We've done lots of different walks, and I've been really privileged to have done that. And all of my mates have got sons as well, and they are constantly surprised at many of the walks that we've done, which are multiple day walks, that some or all of you guys have come with us. And they say, we don't understand why your kids come with you. You are a bastard. You are harsh, you are inappropriate, you drink too much, and you do all sorts of bad stuff, but your kids obviously love you and just keep coming on these trips with you. And I said, well, I don't make them. I just, they seem to want to, and maybe that's why they do it. It's because I don't force them. But it's been, with the exception of the Cape York trip, which was a fucking nightmare. It's been a fantastic opportunity to get to know you guys, and for you to get a unique insight into my personality and what makes me tick. And you only really see that when you pour a few beers into a bloke and find out what sort of bloke he really is, because that's when your facade drops away and you see the true colours of a person. And I think you've seen that I'm not that bad a bloke, and I like to have a bit of fun, and it's been a great experience. And when I'm no longer around, one that I think you guys will look back on and say, what about some of those trips we went on with Dad? They were memory lasting, even if it was headbutting a toilet door or various other.
I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to bring it up.
I'm used to it now. I will always maintain it was not my fault, but I'm never gonna live it down.
Oh, it's good shit. And I think I said that to you on that infamous Cape York trip, where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Is that those trips, particularly for me, it's often not a holiday. I think people misinterpret taking time off work as being exclusively reserved for a holiday. And I think I said it to you on that trip that I can go and sit around on a beach in Bali drinking bintangs and being a buffhead whenever. And, you know, there's always an opportunity to be doing that. But
I think you and I have done that.
Yes, we've also done that. Yeah. So we've been there, done that. So you can do that, you know, periodically and just do your annual do nothing completely unremarkable trip, or you can do something a little out of the ordinary and make some legitimate memories. And even if some of those happen to be headbutting a toilet door in the middle of the night because someone left a backpack out, that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be talking about for years to come. You know, the fact that we have sat on a beach in Bali and drank beers all day, it was nice, it's cool, but I'm not going to be saying, to my kids, gather around, let me tell you this story about me and Grandpa. We sat on a beach and did nothing all day. It was mad.
Yeah, you're right. And I think probably one of the unique aspects of what we've been able to do over the years is the group of mates that I've got that you've been able to travel with and develop your own relationships with. And they are very unique in their outlooks, and some of them, and they certainly, all of them have a very different way of looking at the world to what I have. But together, I think and I don't think too many of them are Anglo-Saxon. There's all sorts of different nationalities. And I think that has been an important part of your education to understand that you should not just pick like-minded people to hang out with, because all they do is reinforce what you already think. You want to be challenged. You want to learn new things. And when you talk to people who've been raised in different circumstances, particularly overseas, you start to understand how blessed we are, how privileged we are. And even people who have completely contrary views to you, they are people you can learn from. And even if it's, I don't ever want to behave like that person, that's okay. So negative experiences, that's okay. You just think, well, yeah, it was bizarre, the Cape York trip where the wheel come off the car and all sorts of bizarre things happen. They are things that teach you that you can have negative experiences, but it doesn't mean that it's a disaster. You will recover, you do work through it, and you come out the other end and you think, oh, okay, well, I functioned all right under those sort of pressures. I don't need to be wrapped in cotton wool and just have a sterile experience when I have a holiday. Not that there's anything wrong with, as you say, sitting on a beach and drinking bintangs, but you don't want to do that all the time. The things that are important as you get older are the experiences that you have, and the people that you have those experiences with, whether it's walking across Spain on the Camino or across England. I've been privileged to have done lots of different things and created memories to look back on. And as you get older, those are the things in my mind that are absolute blessings, particularly in times like we're in now with COVID, where you can't go anywhere.
Yep.
I can lie in bed and think about some incredible experiences that I've had, and I can go on my journey in my head all over again and have some of those wonderful experiences all over and refresh them again. So I'm hoping that I'll always be able to do that. One way or another, I've got those memories. I've created those things. And when I finished Kokoda, I developed my own mantra, that I had on my phone. At that time, those phones, you turn them off every night, turn them on every day. The early mobile phones. And my phone came up with a message to me every day, which was leave a trail you can be proud of. And to me, that became all-consuming. And don't take the easy road. Don't do whatever everyone expects. But whatever you're doing, have a think about when you look back on this, are you going to be proud? Did you do the right thing? Was it the easy way or was it the right way? And so for the next 15 odd years, I've had a lot of different jobs and had some incredible experiences. But it's always with that thought in mind when I'm doing something, am I going to be proud of this or ashamed of this when it's over? And there's not too many things. Some things haven't gone real well, but I'm not ashamed of anything. I don't believe I've made bad decisions. I've made some decisions that weren't didn't have a spectacular outcome, but they've been learnings, and it's all been it's been life's journey. It's all about the journey. It's not about the destination. You should have a destination, but it doesn't matter if you don't get there, because it's the journey and the things that you see along the way that you think, wow, I never thought I'd live to see that. And take those side roads, take the road less travelled, take those little detours, because it's down the little detours that you meet the really interesting cats who are going to say and do things you think, wow, what a wonderful experience that I would never have had if I didn't get off the bus and walk down that little side street. So most people you encounter will embrace you if you are genuine. And if you're not, people's bullshit meter goes off straight away, and no one wants to be around dudes like that. But even if you're rude as hell like me and you drink too much and you're inappropriate, if you're genuine, most people tolerate you and actually understand that underneath that facade, there's something worth getting to know. And that's a bloke who'll take a bullet for you and will look after you and make sure that you have your own experiences as well.
Spot on. Well, I think that's pretty well. You've covered off everything and more than I'd hoped to grill you about and learn about in this chat. I think this has been cool as hell. I think this is the type of conversation that I think a lot of people would benefit from having in their own capacity. I feel like there's a lot of people that, for one reason or another, might not have the type of open dialogue that we have. But I feel like for me personally, there's a huge value in having a conversation like this. So I would encourage anyone to, you don't have to record it or whatever, but I think to have some of the conversations that we've had like this and in the past, I've found to be hugely insightful and really, really interesting.
Well, I tell you, I've got at least as much out of those conversations with yourself and your siblings as what you've got out of them. And I think the more people who actually take the time to get to know their kids and appreciate the fact that your kid probably doesn't think at all like you do, and learning how to be tolerant of those differences, and despite the fact that it's not necessarily exactly what you would think, what I'm proud of is the fact that you come up with these conclusions yourself and you do these various things. And I think, yeah, I haven't made cookie cutter replicas of myself. I've made free-thinking, intelligent adults that other people like to be around as well. So when you guys are off walking with my mates and talking with them up at the bar or whatever, that gives me as much thrill as when I'm talking to you, because I think other people are getting from you guys the same sort of stuff that I do. And what a privilege it is to be around decent people who can conduct a conversation, are a bit of fun, and not afraid to be wrong or to have a different opinion, and put it with respect. But well, if you can, I tend not to worry quite so much about that these days. But that's okay. So yeah, I've certainly got it's a gift that gives both ways, and I made a conscious decision when I thought back on my relationship with my dad that I thought I'm just not going to spend all my life working and then stop working and die. I want to have the experiences, whether it's with my kids or with my mates or on my own. I don't really mind because they're all wonderful experiences and they're all things to reflect back on. But I don't want to ever die wondering. And I've had this conversation with you guys before. If I drop dead this afternoon, you shouldn't be upset. I've had such a wonderful set of experiences, particularly with you guys. Think, wow, I've been blessed. So I don't intend to go. There's lots more things I want to do. But if that's not to be, I believe in karma. And if that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. But by geez, I've had a hell of a ride so far.
Yeah, spot on. Very, very well put. Oh, good to know. Glad to have been able to have the chat, and look forward to a few more strolls.
Yeah, well, I'm still recovering from Cape York, and I reckon I'm happy to go on a stroll with you or with Philip, but just not the two of you together. It's like nitro and glycerine. You know, separately, you're okay. Put you two together, and invariably I get hurt.
Yeah, not my fault. I'm just a participant.
You little bastard, you are most of the time. You sit back and laugh like a bloody schoolgirl while I'm getting dismantled by your brother.
Yeah, it's good shit.
But it's all making memories, and that's what life should be about: making memories, having experiences, and having a crack at whatever it is that you want to. Don't be ordinary. I never cared what people particularly think about me, as long as they think about me. I just don't want them to say, no, I can't remember that bloke. I want them to remember, yeah, that's the bloke who had the lampshade on his head and fell off the seat and whatever it is. I want them to, just remember.
Oh, I think there's no risk of that not happening. Whether it be through any number of stories to be told.
In that case, I can go happy, but I'm not ready to go just yet.
Yeah, spot on. Oh, good to know.
I went to the doctor the other day, and I'm all good to go. I've had a full service, and I'm good to go for another 10,000 k's.
Ah, good gear. Look forward to walking some of them with you.
Good style, mate. You're always welcome.